Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm here with Dr. Paul of Men's Psychology and Romantipedia, and I am here from Next Level Psych, all one word, taking psychology to the next level. And I thought I would guide us in a conversation today about the impact of technology on the psyche, and in a different way because we've heard so much, uh, sturm and drang, so much naysaying and contesting, protesting, we could say, Shakespearean wise. But we're going to get into the specific elements and some language you can hang your hat on and how to maybe undo some of this and stay human, stay mature, and while staying sane. So, with that, I'll toss it to you, Dr. Paul. I know you have a really exciting book that you've discovered that we're going to learn some beautiful takeaways from. So I think our listeners will love that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll get to that in just a minute. It's Scott Galloway's new book, the Stern School of Business NYU professor, seen all over the place, various podcasts, Tim
Yeah.
Ferriss, even, and Bill Maher. He's been on there for years, a lot. And the book is called Notes on Being a Man. So it is about boys and men, their psychology, but it talks a lot about the effects of tech and social media and video games and porn on the young male mind. But I'll get to that in a moment. When you were talking about, I was very compelled when you said, why don't we talk about the effects of tech, social media, and so forth on the mind? And it can't be a Kohut. AI is not Kohut or Freud as
Okay.
yet. It's not.
Right.
It's aggregated data. I said that.
Yep. You did.
It's spitting the data back out in a organized, summarized way. Great. It's good for summaries. That's what I find it good for so far.
Bingo.
It's sometimes inaccurate. The reason it's inaccurate is it's not sentient and doesn't think yet. And
No,
so the first place my mind went in terms of just hearing your introduction saying maybe there's some ways this can harm our psyches. I'm paraphrasing, and maybe there's some things we can do about that to be protective against that.
yeah.
First thing I thought of is I want to compare to mechanical devices or technology that I have had, and the first thing I thought of is one of those back massager devices you can buy, like from um,
Sharper image.
Sharper Image, exactly, or Target or something like this. And then
Sure.
you sit in your easy chair and you put it on your back, and it's just mechanically repeating, "Rah, rah, rah,"
Yes.
and
Yes.
it kind of hurts a little bit,
Yep.
and but maybe it's okay. But I'll tell you what, it does not match an intimate other's touch or a human responsiveness,
Nope. It is not.
like gauging, altering according to reading your bodily response and definitely your emotional response.
Bingo.
Don't even need the verbal response. And AI definitely cannot read our bodies. Some may say not yet. I wonder if maybe ever, because they're
Mm,
silicon based. And what I told you at the outset, they are not embodied as yet. And if they were embodied, they wouldn't be embodied as human flesh. They'd be embodied as some kind of silicon something or other. And it would still be an approximation, an iterative attempt by technologists to approach human embodiment.
right.
And not only that, emotion. What about what is emotion? I mean,
Right.
emotion is, in my view, when I try to define it, it's an energy, and it can be positive or negative energy. And I don't mean that in a weird woo woo way. I mean in a chemical energy running in the brain, in the limbic system, and other structures way. And as chemical energy, that originally came from food, which originally came from the sun. So it's energy. Emotion is energy, at least in terms of how the mind functions as differentiated from the brain. The brain is like hardware. Since we're talking about tech, Why
Yeah.
don't we talk about Frankenstein too, Frankenstein's monster, because we created tech in our cobbled
Yeah.
together, stitched together image like a
Yes.
Frankenstein. So is Frankenstein a human? I mean, no. It's a humanoid appearing
Yeah.
thing. That's what I think AI is. And it's strange that
Right.
I make the analogy to Mary Biz Shelley, I think her name was,
Yeah.
who wrote Frankenstein, right, as a warning about
Yes.
technology getting out of control. But if you look at Frankenstein or watch a movie about Frankenstein, it's like humanoid-ish, looks kind of human, but and by the end maybe has, I mean, that's her fictional flourish there to say it developed emotions by the end of the Frankenstein story, but just out of control behavior, uncontrollable by its creator, who tried to create something in his image, and it was just barely in his image. And I think that's what AI is, at least right now to date.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there to talk about. I would say the one of the chief problems with AI is that you won't have the capacity to. So, okay, there's three therapeutic tasks that Kohut posited. There's mirroring, which involves empathy, and it leads to also some capacity for disagreement of saying,
Transferences,
so some what?
the three transferences. Yeah, mirroring.
Right. Yes. So I like that. And then the idea of idealizing something. So essentially, you can idealize an AI, but you can't hope to reach that point become uh, unless you become transhuman. And so which is kind of a scary thought that like if AI were made that makes us idealize it, it's like, well, oh, I just need more RAM. I'm going to get the program going to receive that hardware, whatever, to become a cyborg. So that's one thing is you can't really idealize it in some way of say, I want to be that because now it's not flesh and blood. And now you completely can't be that. In the future, could you? Don't know. But that idea of twinship or shared human journey is also not there. And so everything is artifice. Everything is
Right.
an attempt to ingratiate itself to you. And so I think for people that have the awareness that being human means navigating relationships and ruptures and that good enough parent that John Bowlby talked about and Mary Ainsworth of you're doing a good enough job. There's going to be ruptures, there's going to be togetherness, and that navigation of it helps you become a teenager. And notice I didn't say adult. Like the idea that you don't always get what you want has always been associated with going into adolescence from an infantile state. And now the idea that you don't always get you what you want from people you love doesn't even have an endpoint, and it's kind of a marketing hook to say, well, you can have it all. That's been the case for at least 3 decades, I would say. As long as I've been alive, it's not a shock to hear you can have everything and your person will just give you everything. That's just what it is. But now there's a real possibility of having a junk food McDonald's version of that. But it will pull in people who don't have emotional literacy. And the people who
Hmm.
need to hear our message probably won't be the ones hearing it because they might not be into self development. So,
Right.
um,
Right.
I think so embodiment you'd brought up is a really good gauge of humanity, of thought, of we think things because of our embodiment. And I think one of the big thought experiments I'd been wondering is if when we become cyborg, if and when people become cyborgs and they don't have to
Yeah.
worry about imperfect memory, how will they ever decide when to stop thinking about something? You don't reach the end of your memories. You have all of everything to think about. You could literally be lost in thought
Sure.
forever. We don't have
Uh,
if you don't have the embodiment or the limitation in memory or the limitation in connotation, you don't really have an endpoint. You could just keep going and going and going, right?
can I say something provocative?
Please go for it.
But not over the line. I'm no Ray Kurzweil, but I want to say something futurist that I think I just realized listening to you.
Yeah.
We're talking about embodiment. I'm going to dip a little into my human courtship model and think
Yeah,
about the evolutionary psychology of males and females, which everybody loves talking about that, right? So
quite a few people,
what
yeah.
what the body is to the biologic female, I believe, career, tech, and accelerants of career to be to male biologic males. What the body is to the female, tech is to males, I
Okay,
believe. Except that
okay.
there are bell curves, there are high tech females and female CEOs of perhaps one of tech companies that are female CEOs. Wink, wink. But thinking of the meaning of the body and embodiment to the biologic female versus the male. Think of think of how males talk about the word body. They will they will not say, "Ooh, my body feels bad," or "Don't touch my body," or they won't say things like that. But they will say, "My body of work, my all of my writings, my body of work," or the body public, or
Yeah,
they will always describe the word body more as a descriptor of one's life mission or career.
like a corpus, meaning the
Like a
term for
my
your body
yeah,
of
my
work.
corpus, yeah, the corpus of Shakespeare, the
Yeah.
canon of Shakespeare. So I just had the thought when you were talking about becoming transhuman that women on in the middle of the bell curve, they're not going to do it, or they're going to do it with great resignation or
Mm,
resistance because that's violating the body in the way that females nurture, protect, um, grow, and prosper their own bodies. Right.
right.
Whereas males will be like, "Give me some more, yeah." And I think that transhumanism, if it becomes actually a thing, if it's destined to occur, is going to be a male first phenomenon for sure, and maybe almost a male only phenomenon, unless the
Sure.
women are pressured by
Male only thing.
romantic competition to find a mate competition, and they'll be
Right.
pressured to do it but won't really like it, and it feels weird and unnatural, but they do it anyway. They'll do it, maybe some of them, but the males will just like gangbusters go for it. Why? Because that's the male plastic surgery, right? Female plastic surgery is huge, way bigger market than male plastic
Yeah.
surgery,
Right.
but transhumanism will be the male plastic surgery because you're putting tech into your embodied self, not for beautification of the body, but for beautification of the mind, let's say, or
A
of the
beautiful
career.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, man. So I like this
Mic
conversation.
drop.
What?
Mic drop.
Yeah. Well, mic drop, I would say, so you have like the evolution of tools, whether it's for harvest in the agrarian sort of post hunter gatherer crop days, you have tools that men used, you have accoutrements and things. I mean, you have cooking. I mean, I don't want this to get sexist real quick here, but you have different tools that women and men have used for their respective tasks. And so,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
this is a really good for their missions, for their purposes. And some men cook, like great chefs can be male and great farmer. Like we know that,
Hey, it's
I don't
not
want to get,
sexist. Upcoming Steve Stewart Williams book, Billion Years of Sex Differences. A billion years of sex differences.
hey, yo, Steve. So my thought, actually, there's a movie. I'm so glad I thought of this. It's a very, I think, under the radar movie. And so Bruce Willis, well, for one thing, it's becoming Die Hard season, and Die Hard is a Christmas
Mhm.
movie. I'm
Right,
sorry.
right,
It
right.
is.
Yeah.
So one of Bruce Willis's later films called Surrogates from 2009, I believe, was a very underrated movie that was very much like The Matrix. So it's easy to give the setup. The setup is society in the near future began using android duplicates. You have an android duplicate made of yourself, and you plug into a chair, again, like the Matrix, you plug into something, and your consciousness, you're like, it's like VR. You see through the android's eyes, and that android moves about and does things, and it looks like you. Now, that's a wild idea. Why is that android out in the world doing stuff and you're at home? It's been years since I've seen it. That's kind of where the movie's like, well, why do you need that? With the Matrix, it's like, oh, it's a system of control and you are being pacified by it. But so in
Mm.
surrogates, there's a distinct, so women do this too. And in the surrogates world, there is like a beautification of the female robot. And there's like a scene in a female robot salon where like the skeleton is put, the endoskeleton is revealed. It's very interesting, but I don't
Mm.
think that really hits home. I don't know how, like, I think for women, for all the criticism women get on so much, I think the idea of keeping bodily integrity because your womb and your body has to sustain life, I think that's usually been first and foremost in a lot of women's minds. And so any kind of meddlesome meddling with technology that could compromise the integrity of your
Yeah.
body and hurt a child,
Oh, yeah.
men don't have to worry about that. So women have to worry in ways that doesn't really get. I mean, I don't ever hear people talking as much about what goes in your body besides Tylenol now. That became the big thing. But like people worry about that a ton. It's just a thing women have had to worry about. And so I think there's probably a huge taboo to modifying the female body with implanted stuff because it could go so wrong. Like those poor girls who got like radium poisoning back in the day from making the radium clocks and stuff. You ever hear about that? Like during World War II or
Oh,
whenever?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, I mean, female bodily integrity is life saving if you are
yeah,
playing with children. I mean, so for men, the body being an instrument of acquisition and provisioning, it's more like building up the strength of it, like a tank. So, and that's not everything for the mind. Now it's moving far more, like you said, into the mind and it being more of a an arms race of ideas and cerebral function. So, and it will be for physical as well, I'm convinced. It's gonna be like augmentation to get more work done physically. We're already there. We've got exoskeleton stuff. It just hasn't, whether
yeah,
robots take
yeah.
that over or humans, it remains to be seen.
Well, even if you looked at the female body as the macro level of the ultimately the egg,
Okay.
and you just look at it in terms of energy expenditure and investment.
Yeah.
I read something recently that there's something like 50,000 times the energy burning and complexity of cellular material in an egg as compared to a sperm. It's just ridiculous. It's like a Death Star,
Yeah.
in
Absolutely.
complexity, as opposed to like a gnat,
Yeah.
in terms of the sperm. So you're taking a
Right.
giant gamble with that egg, and females have approximately 2 to 300 total viable eggs over the reproductive lifetime. So that's 2 to 300 chances to for the genes to continue,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
That's really risky. So there you go. So the body matters for its own sake, but the body is representative of the egg and representative of energy expenditure and of risk, genetic risk, placing your bets. All
Yeah.
bets are on the body.
Well, right. I mean, man, that's a good, pithy alliteration. I mean, so you have selectivity, you have I mean, that comes down to well, I think men, for all the stuff that you hear about women nesting, Steve's recent, or no, Rob's recent, finding that if men aren't committed, a breakup might not happen. If women aren't committed, a breakup is likely. Well, what does that say? Like men often, like men who are cheaters are probably going to be happy to live with
Yes. Yeah, that's
like a
one
primary female
possibility.
partner. I'm kind of different. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
But
one
they
possibility, but I think just as likely, if not more, is that the male the male is well, what's the original overly blunt way of saying it? Men are about things, women are about people. So the men are about their career,
okay.
as I just said. Men will get their cosmetic surgery will be becoming transhuman for the sake of their career advancement and defeating other men and rising in hierarchies and being
Okay.
wealthier and more successful and so forth. But if they are the ones who um, are about things, then the woman, if they're not committed to the emotionality of the relationship and the emotional commitment and the devotion and duty and the listening and the
Right.
validation and all these things that are the emotional parts of the relationship, if they're not committed to that, they still may stay because they're still outer focused. They're focused outside the home. They're focused out on the career. They're not
Right.
focused on the quality of the emotional nature of the home. Whereas the
Right.
female, by and large, on the bell curve, can have a high flying career, but it's going to matter still greatly to her the quality of the emotion of the bonded connection with the partner. And does he listen? Does he value her? Does he validate her emotionally? She does care about that. And that reflects back to the egg and the investment in the future of the egg. Even if she's postmenopausal, there's still the psychology of it running in her like software.
Right. Okay. Well, anyway, um, yeah, keep
Get,
going. Oh, I got.
getting into the
Yeah,
weeds
no,
a
no,
little
no,
bit.
that's fine. I mean, look, I think it's helpful to know what would be appealing to people about transhumanism. I mean, frankly, the you bring up this is a really good entry point to another concern about AI is, and we're already reading about this. This is now. This is not tomorrow. This is. I think people need to realize that.
Yeah.
So we've got people now who can create. So think about it this way: you can create your own 50 Shades of Gray in GPT. You pay 20 a month for for the latest Chat GPT, you're gonna get the ability to create entire worlds with just the spark of a few words of a sentence. And so I think what we have to do, speaking of that very good point of emotional attunement, we're going to have to get clear on why it isn't good to only have that with a machine, because I think the peer pop psychology or response to a human dating a robot, it's very much like motivational interviewing. If you
Mm.
are working in if you're not working in the therapy world and you hear that someone is addicted to meth and they drive high with their kids in the car, it's like, why do you do that? Just stop that. That's not acceptable. But if you're a therapist and you're clever and you've studied addiction, you're going to know that with that person, you need to get into the why and you need to actually have a conversation. What does meth, what does your substance do for you? It's like, oh, I know it's bad. Well, let's get beyond that. Obviously, there's a reason you still do it. So I think with AI, we need to get crystal clear. Oh, that's weird. It's a machine. They're with a machine. No, no, no. Let's put that aside and say, why are you doing it? And for women and men, we have to look at that. We have to say, well, why isn't it healthy to just have that? And I actually had a talk with my friend Catherine D a few weeks ago, not a few weeks ago, like in August. Um, and her perspective is there's just some people that AI is the only thing they're going to be able to have that relationship with. If it's not that, it's nothing. I'll concede that and say that's possible. And I will also say there's the possibility that it will catch people who otherwise could have been convinced to be more pro social and not antisocial. So we have to look at why is it not okay? I mean, this is the question we didn't ask. We're going to repeat the same mistake if we don't work on it, because nobody asked how
Mm.
antisocial will we get in the wake of social media and online dating. People just viewed it as, oh, it's going to be the same thing as in-person dating but more convenient. That was wrong. That was a
Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
lie, either
Yeah.
intentional or unintentional. It really doesn't quite matter, to be frank, because the result was swipe on people and try to net your 0.01% person, and if you don't, give up into despair. Like, that's wrong. So we need to ask now, why will it be bad to have AI romance and narcissism? And I think that's the question.
Mm.
My answer, and I'll hand it back to you, is you're going to be unbearable to anybody around you because you're going to get so out of touch with what it is for someone to push back and challenge you. And this is what they discovered in the Matrix. If you remember the first Matrix movie, people unplugged and passed away because they got everything they wanted. And so the Matrix was made to be like the human life struggle of up and down. And now we're in the AI era of everything being perfect and machines will tell you exactly what you want. And so I'm wondering if we're going to enter an era of the machine saying, "Hey, your ideas are kind of cool, but I think mine's better," to keep it a little more realistic. That's where I'll drop the mic on my end. The hedonic
Oh,
treadmill, as it's called.
the hedonic treadmill, yes. Okay, I'm gonna try something a little complex. I
Let's
wanna
do it.
try to tie 3 things together, synthesize them to make a point, and
Heck yeah.
I'm trying not to lose any one of them, the 3. Okay, so I'm thinking of okay, first off, you kept saying relationship or you're quoting Catherine D,
Yeah.
about it's a relationship. No, it's not a relationship.
Right.
It's certainly not a relationship between 2 mammals. And
No, it's
we
not.
are and the very core of what we all call a relationship is the friendship or love connection that is mammalian brained. And I know not everyone's into the triune brain concept, but I sure am, at least in terms of it being brain software, not actual hardware, not circuitry, but software. It's a convenient way of describing that humans have an unconscious, an ego, and a conscious, or an id, an ego, a superego, a tripartite brain, if you will, in terms of
Force, yes.
software functioning. So it's all about the mammalian brain. It's all about the emotional connection. It is not a relationship if there is not a mammalian emotional connection, at least
I
not in the
like
way
that.
we understand relationships. Now, I immediately thought of the old fashioned calculators that I maybe had as a kid for math class. And could you say I had a relationship to the calculator? Well,
Right,
I
no.
guess in the
Well,
same way that Catherine D, was saying, I'm assuming to you, but it sure didn't feel warm, real, relational, adaptive, attuned, as you had said a little bit earlier, which brings me to
sure.
the second concept I want to tie together. Kohut's mirroring transference. So mirroring transference is this added experiential sensory overlay of what we call true relationships or friendships or love onto that mammalian brained emotional connection. The mirroring is going on in terms of data transfer. Data communication of data is in part emotional and empathic in mirroring, in the mirror transference, but it's also data conveyance in the communication too. And it's even sensory, and maybe they're close with robots and computers to them having actual senses in a way, but it's still not like a human sense, the 5 senses. So this
Yeah,
mirroring concept then made me think of a third idea, which you've heard of, mirror neurons, right? Discovered in 1993, I
yeah,
believe. And mirror neurons are all over the brain, and they are fired in patterns similar to the communication we are hearing from another human via that mammalian emotional connection that we're sharing. And as that other human tells us a story, essentially, the story is getting recreated in the patterns of the mirror neurons, which are throughout the brain, and mimicking what that
yeah,
person experienced in an actual true life story they lived, or or perhaps a fantasy that they lived. And so this brings me back to, I told you it was complex. This brings me back to what happened right before Freud? Well, there was philosophy. There was not psychology yet or
yeah,
psychiatry. There was philosophy. And what was the dominant school of philosophy right before Freud and which influenced Freud? The linguists. And the
yeah,
linguists believed the mind, their philosophy was the mind is structured like a language. The mind digests language, it digests stories. So if we were trying to make the perfect Frankenstein monster, um, mimicking, ourselves, playing God, being being all powerful creators, then we would not make an AI that is like a calculator that just spits out one time data and then forgets who you are or what your story as an individual is, or what your joint, more importantly, what your joint story with the AI has been up till now. They don't, to date, to my knowledge, at least the ones that I've purchased, um, can't keep a narrative, a running, ongoing narrative. Every time I shut off the computer, it's like the narrative's gone from last time. Maybe there's more advanced ones that they save the history you've shared together, but that history was never based in touch, in the senses touching each other, never based in narrative, storytelling meaning. It was based in data aggregation and summarization. It wasn't a storytelling, intellectual brain structure, mind structure, let's say, nor did it have real, true emotion, nor is the AI a mammal. They would have to be a mammal for it to be a true relationship. And that's how I
Yeah,
tie all this together. The mirror neurons mean we digest stories, we grow together and bond with each other emotionally through stories. We, if we are together romantically or as friends or as family, we have a shared story. So there's our individual stories and also our shared story. That reminds me a little of Sternberg with, his later iteration of his basically triune brain model of human courtship. And then he overlaps that and says, oh, it's like a story too, you know? So
sure.
it's not a real relationship for all these reasons I've just listed. It's not mammalian. It's not based in emotion, true emotion, the chemical energy
Right.
embodied in a flesh body, carbon based body.
Okay.
It can't possibly be. It's nothing
Yes.
similar. And there's no storytelling structure of the data. The data isn't structured like a story. Although you could ask it to write you a story, it's not the database architecture itself being story form. It would have to be story form, not hard drive, row on row, like a calculator from my childhood. So
Yeah.
for all no sensations, no sensory or embodied or mirrored or ongoing evolving narrative between us. For all those reasons, it is not a real relationship. And then one bonus comment. Bonus comment is if you go into dating apps, now what I think happened, I just suddenly realized that went wrong with the whole field, the whole
Mhm.
technology is we are meant to be mammalian connected, bonded emotionally,
Sure.
flesh and blood through touch and through story. And then
Right.
when you interrupt that, you separate those two people never came together in the first place, but they're looking for each other. Now you have, instead of a flesh and blood Yenta matchmaker from days of yore who would have a relationship to the boy, have a relationship to the girl, and just sees that they'd be compatible and in flesh and blood brings them together as a
Okay.
mutual friend. That was the matchmaking throughout human history, if there was a matchmaker. Now you have
Okay.
this silicon based, impersonal, not non mammal, non story based calculator like device that is listening to the male's story, I guess, aggregating data, facing the female, aggregating her data,
Okay.
matching the data sets, and bringing two mammals together that where there was no mammalian intermediary matchmaker yenta. That just occurred
Well,
to me.
that was the goal. That was specifically, I mean, that's where the rationalism and we are just brains in a vat philosophy of the misguided Rene Descartes kind of it's where it led us. I mean, Descartes was the "I think, therefore I am" guy, and I think
Yeah. that's
that's fine. I mean, I don't know that he could conceive of thinking programs like we see in the Matrix, but do they think? They have the appearance of thinking. It all goes so far down. I mean, what you're essentially talking about is the a different way of describing it is the Chinese room um, thought experiment, and so that's a very interesting experiment from John Searle. Searle, however his name's pronounced, but it was from 1980. Basically, a an AI can accept Chinese characters as input, okay, then carry out instructions, okay, and produce Chinese characters as output. But it's is does the machine really understand the conversation, or is it just so good at
Ah,
simulating it? So if you yourself are in a room and you have pencils, paper, erasers, and you receive a Chinese character and you follow a program that tells you which one to then put out, or you but out the door, but you can't read the character. You just have a program to know what character to reproduce. You will pass the Turing test the same way that the computer would. Do you think it's a computer or a human? But you didn't understand anything you were doing. It's like, well, what does? So I
the
thought I want to add
Turing
that
test
flavor to
is
it.
the Turing test is, you may know this. Can you tell a male conversation from a female conversation? That's the Turing test. That's that's what proves a sentient being, according to Turing. If you type data into the computer, sentence structure, nouns, verbs, in a
Okay.
certain style, if the computer can detect that you are a male doing that or you are a female doing that, that's the Turing test. It was the ability to tell
Okay.
male from
Uh,
female language that proved sentient consciousness.
yeah, I had heard. So that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, when you look at
It's
what
embodied.
they
Think of it. I'm sorry to interrupt. Think of it that way.
go
It's an embodiment. If you've been a male, biologic male all your life, heterosexual, biologic male or female all your life, you are embodied since moment one, your birth, in that body, and that body carries with it certain epi phenomena of behavior, experience out in the world, the muscularity of the body, the size of the body, the masculinization of the brain or feminization of the brain in terms of how worried are you about the body. It kind of harkens back to our talk of the feminine body and cosmetics and the importance of the body and the egg to the female. Think of males by contrast. If they play football and they get all bruised up in their rugby game or their football game, they're not appalled and in horror and shock. They're actually kind of maybe proud of their
right.
bruises, and they show them off to the other guys and say, "Look how bruised up I got, bud. I really played hard." They view their bodies differently in the middle of the bell curve than females do. And so that's
Yeah,
the Turing test. I think what the Turing test was doing by testing, are you male or female, you person
I need to
inputting
see which
data?
version that is, but I'm here. Okay,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah. So that's
But check it
interesting.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
If so, it's proving embodiment, which is proving sentience.
So okay, I hear you. I mean, can so this gets into what if someone you could do a thought experiment and say, what if a human brain was disconnected from the heart? Because I my view after studying the Zeigarnik effect and how um the there's an urge to complete what's incomplete. And if you have a thought, if you and it triggers, if you visually see something and it's like, a pink mailbox, and you get what's called an epistemic feeling, a feeling of knowing, in other words, that you get, you notice, you feel your heart races because you realize you know something, and that initiates a search in your brain for the memory. I studied that loop, right? So I studied that when studying how EMDR therapy works, and so I became convinced that you need like a brain and a heart, and I don't mean that metaphorically, to really be simulate human thought. So basically, you need a heart. Well, what does the heart do? The heart quickens your focus and your hypervigilance on something, and which a disembodied brain would be like Data from Star Trek with no urgency. The heart and
Yes.
the sensorium, the actual so
Yeah.
the soma, the body provides the sort of them. You keep saying embodiment. I love that term. The urgency for whatever is at hand, or the lack of urgency if it doesn't matter. So speaking of embodiment, I mean, the machine doesn't have that. It's a glorified marketing device, and so
Mm.
much more to talk about there. I mean, I recommend seeing the movie Predator Badlands because there's a robot in it, and
Ah.
there's a conversation about why the machines were given the ability to simulate emotion, and it was kinda chilling.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I
How
think
about the movie Companion? Same thing.
yeah, I loved
Companion?
that. Well, Companion was great, and Companion was interesting because depending on what movie you go to see, people will say, like, "A machine has rights," and you have to ask, what are you pointing to about it? If it's because it's in the form, if you made a toaster in the shape of a human, would it have rights? Of course not. Well, if you make a machine in the shape of a human and it reacts and mimics emotion, does it have rights? I think many people who don't think things through would say yes. And I don't know. I think Companion, it's a robot, right? But the movie makes you think that the robot has rights because it acts so much like a human. I think we're
Mm.
on the verge of something like that. We're going to have to really reason through what makes something human. And so, it's but that's a pretty clear answer right now. Clearly something that can search and give you back an imitation of something is not human. It's the Chinese room experiment. It's giving you a symbol when you put a symbol in. That's not thinking.
Oh,
That is
oh,
nothing but
yeah. Okay, I see
mimicry.
what you're saying. I thought you were alluding to a far more, not ancient, but quite old, well, ancient, minus 500 BC, the
Yeah.
the Muslim, thinker, Avicenna,
Yes.
who had the flying man experiment, and the
Mm,
flying man experiment was if you were born in a liquid dense as human flesh so that you felt no gravity, so that's the flying part,
right.
and you had no sensations, you didn't go up or down or left or right, and you couldn't open your eyes and you couldn't hear. You were in this vat of liquid as dense as your body.
Yeah.
Then, do you have conscious thought? Are you conscious? And the experiment was to say, yes, you are, because even when you are weightless, you don't feel gravity, you don't feel sensations, and you've never known or seen your own body, your mind exists. It was like a Rene Descartes proof from a different culture. I think Moorish
Yeah.
Spanish culture, Avicenna, the flying man
Yes. I,
experiment.
I gotta run. This is really good.
Oh, yeah,
Pick
yeah.
up on
All
this
right, to
next
be
time.
continued. To be continued. You
Yes.
got it. All right.